to Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hello and welcome, friends. I'm Shauna Corden and glad to have you here on the Playbook for Performance podcast. Our mission is to make work fun again by building better leaders. Last week, we talked about having allies for accountability and building your own list of questions that would keep you accountable to your own values. How did that go for you? What surprised you? If you'd like to share your list, email us and we can add them to the epilogue by dropping a note to podcast@shaunacorden.com. Now on to today. In keeping up with our theme of the self-aware leader, I want to talk about the areas where we are not aware, what we call a blind spot. I think we're all familiar with a blind spot. In a car, it's those tricky areas that are unseen because of pillars or areas that windows and mirrors don't allow us to see. Hence the need to look over our shoulder to be sure. And as technology has evolved, we had additional sensors to cue us, the light or sound on a side view mirror that alerted us to the presence of potential danger. Now, unfortunately, not every leader has a team that informs them of the presence of potential danger. It could be a bias for optimism that blinds them to risk, or pride that makes them overly confident and fail to create a risk management plan. This is one of my primary roles as a coach, to act as a blind spot alert. When I partner with leaders to plan to achieve goals, we do review potential obstacles. I liken it to viewing your travel options on your navigation app. Where's the heavy traffic? The construction zones? The toll roads? Could the competition, integration schedules, or increased construction costs derail this goal? What about the people aspect? Can they navigate change well? Do they have a strong enough foundation to be resilient? But the great coach goes one step further. Do they know their client well enough to identify these areas that are the personal challenge rather than the generic challenge for the leader? To identify these blind spots, we often have to go into another lane. We talk about similar past efforts, where things went awry. It does get personal. We're asking them to be vulnerable. I'm wrapping up teaching a course for ethics and coaching. It's been a wonderful experience, and I have loved my class of committed students. One of the assignments was for the students to identify their own biases that may impact their coaching, the coach's own blind spots. As for my own biases, I am personally swayed by the underdog, a good work ethic, and balanced ideas. I favor the right thing to do versus the correct thing to do. I volunteer these biases in my conversations with my clients so that they know if we share the same biases, we together have to overcorrect and change lenses. We must be intentional to take the side of the dominant player, or the cheap and easy way, or the emotional argument. It's not very natural, and it has to be intentional. Companies have techniques for this, such as placing a seat at the table for the customer, cardboard cutout of the avatar in an actual chair. Naming our biases, and therefore our blind spots, brings awareness to the potential danger we're exposed to if not addressing them. When we name it, we claim it, and we can address it. Biases can be both good and bad, but not being aware of them is where the dangers exist. By knowing the pillars, obscure spots around our car, we compensate and we find ways to reduce exposure. The same is true with our own blind spots. So how do we become aware when we're unaware? We partner, we analyze, we take inventory. What are your preferences? What are your tendencies? What are your pet peeves? What does that reveal? How does your coach or your partner help you see the other side? Does your team need help analyzing and inventorying your biases, understanding your blind spots? I work with clients and their teams to increase their awareness and build trust between themselves and others by naming these preferences. This builds a culture of reflection and removes blame and finger pointing. Schedule a workshop for your team by emailing me at shauna@shaunacorden.com. This brings us to our tool of the week, openly discussing biases to determine blind spots. Create an agenda item on your next staff call. Talk about your favorite things to do at work, the things that put you in flow, that make time fly, your favorite characteristics of team members. What do these things reveal about your team? Is your team positive, open, and sharing? Do they value a free exchange of ideas and promote one another's accomplishments? If so, it may reveal an organization that has a bias for positivity, consensus, and harmony. So what are the potential blind spots for a team with this bias? Sounds like a great place to work for sure, but it could be missing competition, critical thinking, and risk management. So here's your field work. Because coaching without action isn't coaching, it's just entertainment. Inventory your own biases. Think about what might be missing. Inventory your team biases. How can you bring that alternative perspective into play? Explore through discussion. Keep it lighthearted, make it fun. Create a safe space. How can you honor your team's culture while introducing some of the missing elements? Let me know if I can share some conversation starters for you by dropping a note to our podcast at podcast@shaunacorden.com. Each week in the podcast, I like to highlight a leader doing it well and one that had a wobble. If you'd like to nominate your organization or share a story, please email me at podcast@shaunacorden.com. My applause this week goes to a client who recently finished a workshop identifying their own biases. They recognized that the dynamic of the team was too constricted. Members didn't feel safe sharing opinions, and contributions were limited to what might be popular. By the end of the workshop, shoulders were a bit more relaxed and brows a bit less furrowed. There's still a lot of work to do, but with regular maintenance and bringing safety into the space, this team will get past the storming. I applaud the effort. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, give us a rating, and tell your friends. If you'd like to hear more about a topic that would make your work fun by improving the leaders in your organization, please drop us a line at podcast@shaunacorden.com. Until next week, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shaunacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.